Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, and I have come up with another speaking practice of my to improve my voice and my fluency of English. But this is mainly gonna be reading. I will mostly be reading from text. I found this wiki. I wanna do some articles, but then I thought maybe I should do something which I wanna do actually. So here I am. So today I'm gonna read the wiki of my favorite character Arthur Morgan. Uh, I'm trying to like project my voice by placing my hand on my diaphragm and my another hand on just right of my kidney area. I don't feel really any movement, but it's gonna take a while right now. Anyways, let's start with each paragraph. I'm gonna keep them slowly. Okay, here I go. Here I go. History, background. Dutch trusted writer and the story protagonist. Arthur has been a member of the gang since he was a young boy, when he was saved by Dutch, and has followed him ever since. His loyalty to the gang leader has been unwavering in this time, though the recent events at Blackwater have clearly troubled him. Arthur Morgan was born circa 1863 to Beatrice and Lyle Morgan in the northern United States. As a child, his mother died of unknown causes while his father was a petty criminal and outlaw. In 1874, when Arthur was 11 years old, his father was arrested for larceny. Morgan later witnessed his death and, despite a strained relationship with him, still donned his hat and kept a picture of him. Around 1877, a 14-year-old Arthur was found as a wild delinquent and picked up off West Street by outlaws Dutch Vanderlyn and Hosea Matthews. Viewing the pair as surrogate father figures, Arthur came to share Dutch's vision of life lived free from the constraints of civilization and the rule of law. The pair taught him how to read, write, hunt, fight, shoot, and ride, becoming their first protege as well as one of the founding members of the Vanderlyn gang. A little later, Arthur met Susan Grimshaw as she got romantically involved with Dutch and joined the gang, acting as a tough mother figure. As a young adult, Arthur met a girl named Mary Gillis, where the two fell deeply in love and even became engaged. He befriended her younger brother Jamie and taught him horseback riding. On the other hand, Mary faced disapproval from some female gang members such as Susan Grimshaw. However, Arthur's preference for a life of crime, coupled with the prevalent disapproval of Mary's family, most strongly from her father, ultimately caused her relationship to fall apart, and the pair separated at some point between 1894 and 1899. In 1884, Arthur was sent out fishing and pridefully returned with three beautiful bass. The king celebrated with a big feast and toasted him all night long. The following week, Arthur and Dutch walked in the local market where it was revealed that he had simply purchased the bass from a fishmonger, much to his embarrassment. In 1885, Arthur met a 12-year-old boy named John Marston, who had been saved by Dutch from being lynched by a group of Illinois homesteaders. John was inducted into a gang and raced alongside Arthur, with the pair growing as close as brothers. Just instilled the boys with his anarchist worldviews against a corrupt government and preached that revenge was a fool's game. Over the years, Arthur and John became regarded as just favorites, Dutch's favorite sons. In 1887, Arthur participated in the gang's first major bank robbery alongside Dutch and Hosea. At 2 o'clock, the trio burst into the banking house of Lee and Hoyt and managed to make off with 5,000 in gold. After the robbery, they lingered in town, going to hovels, shanties, and orphanages, handing out money, envisioning themselves as Robin Hood figures. It was following this event where Arthur became a wanted man. Some time after, Arthur met and slept with a 19-year-old waitress named Eliza, resulting in her becoming pregnant with their son Isaac. Although Eliza knew of Arthur's lifestyle, she accepted whatever support he offered to her and their son. Arthur, Arthur, not wanting to promise anything he could not keep, said that he would do right by them. He would periodically visit Eliza and Isaac every few months and stay with them for days at a time. Arthur remembered fondly of Isaac as a good kid. Tragically, one day, however, Arthur arrived at their home and saw two crosses outside. He knew immediately that they were both dead, and later learned that they had been shot and killed by robbers, all for $10. This traumatic incident hardened Arthur as a result, as he never truly coped with the pain and gave him the understanding to not live the life of an outlaw and expect good things to happen to him. That's too sad to read, alright. At some time, Arthur found a pet dog named Copper, whom he grew particularly close to and occasionally took baths with. Although Arthur had difficulty controlling him, he admires the dog's spirit. He also acquired a mare at some point named Borisia, who he became fond of, although she passed away sometime before the gang's arrival at Coulter. In 1894, a prostitute named Abigail Roberts joined the Brandley gang after being introduced by Uncle. At some point, she fell in love with John Marston and became pregnant with their son Jack. Arthur became a surrogate uncle figure to him growing up. John, however, refused to accept responsibility over the boy and soon left the gang around 1896. Around a year later, John returned, and while Dutch and the majority of the gang welcomed him back with open arms, Arthur felt betrayed by his actions, and a rift was formed between the two, which steadily grew over the years. At some point between 1893 and 1899, Arthur, uncle, and recent recruit Bill Williamson robbed a bank near Canada. Uncle served as a lookout, which Arthur claims to be he performed poorly at, while Bill and Arthur acted as gunmen. In the mid-1890s, Arthur took part in a bank robbery at Tucson, Arizona, alongside fellow gang members Javier Escuela and Karen Jones. The heist was a success, with the pair sending Karen to infiltrate the bank disguised as Nun, concealing two pistols in her clothes. Sometime prior to 1899, Javier and Arthur attempted to rob a stagecoach after receiving tips from a crooked lawman in Reno, Nevada. However, they decided to let the stagecoach go when they found out that it was full of women and children. To their disappointment, the stagecoach was robbed by the disco boys the very next day, who murdered all of its passengers. By 1898, the gang had found itself in Montana. During their stay, Hosea caught several large salmon during a fishing trip and planned to prepare a feast for the whole camp. However, the feast was cut short when Copper found and ate the fish, passing away soon after. Arthur would keep a picture of Copper on his wagon as a memento. After a fire in which Arthur's old journal was lost, and some trouble up north, the gang traveled south and east, taking a slow and tortuous trail down through the northern grizzlies to throw off anyone tracking them. Then they spent several months in wilderness. During the winter, they stuck mostly to the western foothills of the mountains. While traversing the grizzlies, several new members were picked up and brought into the gang. A young teenager, Lenny Summers, and a drifting outlaw, Charles Smith. Outlaw Arthur had generally fair opinions of the pair, eventually forming close bonds with the two. Later on, the gang came across Jenny Kirk, a young woman abandoned by the roadside. The most recent member inducted into the gang was Micah Bell, a hard-headed carrier outlaw who saved Dutch's life in a shootout. Although Dutch took a liking to Micah, Arthur and Hosea openly disliked him for his tendencies. By the end of 1899, the gang had arrived in West Elizabeth and decided to hide in plain sight just outside Blackwater, a town undergoing the process of industrialization. The gang began to scope out many leads, including Arthur and Hosea, who were planning a hefty real estate scam. Despite this, Dutch was also planning something big. Supported by Micah, Dutch began working on plans to rob a ferry laden with riches coming to Ho's town. Hosea and Arthur were reluctant despite Dutch's beliefs. His plan was to carry out the heist and flee west, possibly into New Orleans. Then, after Arthur and Hosea carried out their scam, they would join the gang the following day. Unfortunately, the ferry heist did not go as expected. At some point during the robbery, the gang was ambushed by the Pinkertons, causing a massive firefight known as the Blackwater Massacre. Arthur and Hosea arrived late, and by then the gang was barely holding on. Several gang members were killed or seriously injured, and they fled the area in an almighty scramble north into the mountains in hopes of avoiding the law. Arthur suspected that the heist might have been a setup. Okay, so we are done with the history, and there was some really new stuff. Even though I have played the game for few times and have watched some of the stuff.